What's good? What's happening, everybody? It's your boy Ferris Madonna, and welcome to another edition of The Unsung. This week, I got my main man, Jamil Sheared. He is the game day coordinator at San Francisco State. Today, we're going to talk about how he operates on game days, his basic day, and how he got into the love of sports. So let's get right into it. So, Jamil, right here, we're in the press box, right in front of the soccer field. Right off the bat, where did you gain your love of sports real quick?
Well, when I was a little kid, to be honest, I wanted to be an accountant.
You want to be an accountant?
I wanted to be an accountant until I was 8 years old. My buddy introduced me to the Chicago Cubs. And I fell in love with baseball and just having friends and rooting for sports right then and there. So 1988 started my love of baseball and sports right there.
Well, are you from Chicago?
I was born in Chicago, yes. So I was born on the south side, so all of my family members were White Sox fans. But except for my mother. My mother was a Cubs fan. So she held out hope. She's like, the Cubs will never win. Don't get too high hopes, but this is your team. Here you go. You root for these guys.
Rooting for teams like that really builds character and loyalty.
That's what they say.
Yeah. As a Knicks fan myself.
Yeah.
So, as well as, can you take me, what drove you to this job particularly? Because I know you wanted to be a journalist, or you were in journalism school at Missouri. What drove you to this?
All right. So, as you're saying, I was at journalism school at Missouri, but before that, I lived basically on this campus. My mother taught here at San Francisco State for 15 years. She was in the education department. And I went to high school right up the road. And so then I went to school at Missouri for sports journalism. I really wanted to get into sports journalism, but there aren't a lot of jobs out there for sports journalists in the middle of the country that pay. So at the end of my time there, I did a little producing, a little work in their sports department, and decided that that wasn't really going to be my path. So I came back here and started to intern for the athletics department in 2005. And then I started to like it, and it was just like I wanted to stay working in sports. Good schedule, you get to be around athletics, which is what I love. So, and I was either going to be a journalist or I was going to do this. So, this is where it ended up. And 16 years later, I'm here.
Yeah. Can you take me through like a non-game day for you?
A non-game day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, most non-game days don't really have as much impact as game days. Non-game days are more about making schedules for students, making sure that everyone is their schedules are ready for working, making sure that I have all the uniforms clean for the students to wear that when they are working, make sure we have enough money, make sure everything is organized so that come game time I'm not running around the day up trying to figure out what's going on. So that's pretty much what non-game days are like.
So can we flip it now, like game day? How hectic is it? Is it like kind of like, are you going through emotions now, or is it like still like something happens and you're like, wow, I never knew this was going to happen?
Well, I guess it's kind of a loaded question a little bit, because on the days that you don't want to say that you're not prepared. I mean, sports out there, you're never going to know what's going to happen out there.
Yeah.
But what you can control is what you're prepared for here. So this is one of those jobs that as long as you're prepared, and when I first started out, I didn't know what I was doing necessarily. But as you say, you just kind of get used to setting up for games and making sure that the schedules are done and you know where everything's going to be, you know where you need to be. Okay, I need to be at the event 3 hours beforehand. I need to make sure the students are there 90 minutes beforehand. If certain students aren't going to be there 90 minutes beforehand, what's your plan of attack for getting students to replace them? You've got to be aware of which students are going to be the ones that aren't necessarily going to make their schedule days for work. So you just kind of plan for those kind of things that you can deal with. When it comes to other things, you just kind of like, you have to roll with the punches. You have to be very, very zen about things, because it's athletics. You can't predict, just like the weather. You can't predict if it's going to be a sunny day. You can't predict if it's going to be a day where it's really cold and you're like, okay, students, you got to work outside in 55-degree weather. You never know what's going to happen. You get days like this, it's perfect. Everybody wants to come to work outdoors. But yeah, you just a lot of being very zen and being able to roll with things.
Can you, give me something about your job that not a lot of people like would think would come with it, and that you take pride in?
Well, I do take pride in being prepared and knowing how to do my job. Those are the things that I take pride in, just being like, okay, I've been here long enough that now I know if there's going to be something that that might come out of the ordinary, it's going to be very rare. It's going to be mostly just like, okay, we're here for a game, we're here to sit up, we're here to shut down. You can't control what's going on the field, that's their thing. But outside of the field, you control everything else, and you're just making sure everybody does their work. That's pretty much it.
When you tell people you're the game day coordinator at San Francisco State, what's the first thing they say to you? Like, ooh, like what is that? Or like, oh, you do this? Like, do they get it correctly most of the time?
Well, when I first started working here in the athletics department, I was actually not really the game day coordinator. I had a different title. I was a spirit coordinator, and that's what I had been hired to do. And so a lot of my friends, and just because they didn't really know what a spirit coordinator is, and there's a lot of misogynistic thinking when it comes to sports. So they would be like, oh, you must be in charge of the cheerleaders. Haha, where's your cheer outfit? And it's like, oh, hilarious. No, that's not really what I do. I'm in charge of setting up for games and things like that. And so they changed my title to better fit what I was actually doing. And then, it's just now when people ask me about what my title is, it's like, oh, you run events. I was like, oh, I'm not running the athletics department. I'm just, the guy that is there on the ground making sure that the students are here to work events. It's not as important as the title sounds, but at the same time, it's not as small as it could be. Yes.
I feel like there's a lot of moving parts. Can you take me through your communication with probably we interviewed Kendrick, I think a while ago, and as well as Brandon. Like, how do you guys make sure your communication is very streamlined and nothing gets fumbled?
Well, lots of emails. There's a lot of texting going back and forth between the three of us, the two that you mentioned, Kendrick and Brandon and myself, and the game day coordinator Chan Din. Not game day coordinator, the equipment manager Chan Din. He helps with setting things up. Also, especially during the week, he helps me immensely. So just a lot of communicating back and forth between the four of us before games to make sure that when it comes time, we're not wondering where the other one is. Like, if you're not going to be here, I know what I need to do to make up for that. Those kind of things.
So last question, can you take me through like a memorable game day? Like something that, like, when someone says, hey, what was like something crazy that happened, or like something good, you feel like, yes, this game, this time, this year?
Okay, well, there's a couple of games that I actually could come to. There was a game, I guess, back in, I want to say 2010. We were facing the number 2 team in the nation in men's basketball, Mona, number 3. And we hit one of their players hit a shot with 1.5 seconds left, and we're down 2. And our best player at the time, he comes in, takes it inbound, he was at 3/4 of court, bang, hits a shot. We upset number 3. Student section comes out of the court. We're full at that time. Everybody's jumping up and down in the middle of the court. And then we're having to hustle because as part of our function as the game day crew, we're recording the game on camera. So we have this video. We have this footage. It's like, wouldn't it be great to do something with it? So the sports information director at the time, a man by the name of Joe Danahay, he was like, okay, let's make sure that we get this stuff on the internet. So we hustle, we take the video, we send it to ESPN, and that night we're number 2 in the top 10. San Francisco State, I don't think we've ever been on ESPN on Sports Center. We've been on ESPN, I'm sure. It's just not on Sports Center in a long time. So it's just like one of those wow moments, Another one, we had an event where the women's soccer team, we were hosting a playoff match. Went scoreless. We went to extra kicks, 8 extra kicks. Goalie stood tall like a wall, and then we finally get one to go on the 8th kick. Amazing, and then that team ends up going to the CCAA tournament. So that was fantastic. Those are the days you look for. Just like those are the hard ones too, because those are the ones that usually have the most scrutiny on them. So people are paying more attention when you're in the playoffs than they are when you're in like just a regular game. So that can add a little stress to your job too. But at the end of the day, those are the ones you remember the most.
Well, Jamil, thank you very much, man.
Thank you, sir.